Welcome to another episode of the Proteus Performance Podcast, where we feature our customers, their businesses, who they train, and how they train them. You guys are going to love our guest today. Our guest today is Joe Ferrer. Joe Ferrer graduated from Florida Atlantic University in Boca Raton, Florida, and then played college baseball at Broward Community College in Florida. And then after that, he spent 12 years deciding, after his experience playing baseball, spent 12 years as a sports performance coach, training people in the NFL, the MLB, the NBA, and then really started to focus more on baseball performance, which we'll get into in the episode, and started his own business called Reroute Performance in 2019. And actually has facilities in both California and in Florida. So it's a really unique story. I think you guys will really enjoy that. He mostly focuses on high school baseball and Major League Baseball players. So that's the primary demographic he trains. He talks about how getting into the specialization of that, but his client list, you guys, is unbelievable. He has worked with World Series MVPs, regular season MVPs, and the only Triple Crown winner in the last 50 years. He's a really humble guy. He doesn't drop names. I make him drop some names in this episode, so you will hear those names, but it's Giancarlo Stanton, Miguel Cabrera. He's got a list of others. He's even, if you're paying attention, he's going to give us a hint on who's going to be the next big people to come in the baseball world. He's seeing some big things from some of his current athletes, has some high hopes for a few of them. So, he's had a Proteus for one of the longer running clients that we have, which is one of the reasons we wanted to have him on, and we have a very close relationship with him now. Just a wealth of knowledge and really brings a lot of positivity and high energy. And again, just a really humble guy that I'm sure you guys will learn a lot from. So I hope you enjoy the episode. Okay, Joe Ferrer, welcome to the Proteus Performance Podcast. Great to have you on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I have been waiting to do one of these. I actually have never done a live podcast before. I've been asked several times, but it just never worked out one way or the other. So this is actually my first one. So hopefully it's good.
Now, we were warming up before this. We were talking. You did not share that with me. That's awesome. I'm honored that you, after spending so much time with you, I'm honored that I got to be your first guest. Let me tell you, there's been you're the first guest on this podcast that, man, let me redo that. I am honored that you chose us to be the first podcast that you're on. Yes. Because you got a lot of valuable things to say, and your experience is awesome. And so I'm pumped that we get to be the first one. So I know about you. We've known each other for a while now, but why don't you tell the listeners first a little background on yourself? Let's start out with that. Like, how did you get into this field, right? Give us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, so I played baseball growing up at the high school level, and then I ended up playing in college at Broward Community College. It's a small JUCO down in South Florida. And, so I've been in the sports field for my whole life, mainly playing baseball. And then I ended up going to school for exercise science at Florida Atlantic, where I finished up. And I needed to do an internship. And I had a really good friend that I grew up with that did an internship at a facility that had, all the sports performance training, a whole medical staff, and just the works as far as, an athlete coming in to get right for whatever season they were going into. So I ended up doing an internship, and I kind of split it up into sports performance. And then I didn't know if I wanted to go into physical therapy like you do. So I'm like, okay, it's perfect to choose a facility that has both. So I quickly realized, though, opposite of you, that I wasn't into the whole rehab setting. It was kind of a little slow paced and a little boring. And, when you get out on the field and you're training a group of athletes for speed, and then you get them in the weight room and you're doing all the core and mobility work, it's just a more lively, fun atmosphere. So I kind of gravitated towards that. And then since I played baseball, I wanted to train baseball, but the way the company was set up that I was at, I ended up doing pretty much everything. So I was training youth athletes, little kids from 8 years old up through collegiate. I was training the NFL players. I was training Major League Baseball, but I knew I wanted to get more into the baseball. And then within a few years, I ended up becoming the director of the Major League Baseball department. And then I just kind of grew from there, really. And now this is my 12th year training athletes, and it's awesome. So
awesome, man. So is it, sounds like you kind of stumbled into baseball specifically being something that you were focusing on. It wasn't that you were, well, I mean, you do have that background, but did you purposely like try to go after baseball, or did it kind of come to you?
Athletes are kind of funny. So I never played football, organized football. I played a little bit here growing up, but I was never in a team setting, and I never had a position and all that. So, it's funny in the industry of sports performance. Sometimes, you'll get the athlete that says, well, you don't know what you're talking about. You never played NFL, and you never did this, and you never played college football, and you never played NBA or college basketball. So I know you know what you're talking about, but you can't talk our language. You know how it goes in that arena. So it's kind of like, well, I did play baseball, so you can't tell me anything there. So I have a lot of experience in the baseball world, and I just get along with baseball players and speak the same language, and enjoy training them, and know what it takes to construct have a constructive off season with them and all that. So that's kind of how I gravitated into that. But with that being said, I've probably trained more NFL players than I have Major League Baseball. I'm kind of going more towards just baseball specific now, because I find it to be, I don't know, it's just a little easier. Not that I need easier, but when you just have 95% baseball players walking through the door, it makes it a little more intimate and easy to control, I guess you can say.
And I'm sure you can see patterns of training, like with specialization in one sport, obviously you're going to gain more perspective on how to train that sport better. Yes. You're going to see what's working, what doesn't work, versus if you are training all types of different athletes, you're having to manage different off seasons, different, training, periodizations and all that for different types of, sports and positions. Obviously it's going to be more complicated.
Yeah. So I mean, it's, a little example is, if you have a football player and a baseball player on the turf and a tennis player on the turf, they have different energy system demands. And sometimes you're running around like, all right, I got to get all these things organized. And then if someone is hurt or not feeling good or, sore from the day before, and now I got 4 things going on. And then all of a sudden the medical person brings in another person, and I got 5 things going. It just gets, again, too busy. And again, I've done it, but I like the specialization of baseball, and being in Miami and being in Orange County, we have a ton of baseball players. So from a business perspective, it works.
So great transition there. I'd love for you to tell everyone a little bit about those 2 facilities and really just about your business, right? So we got a little bit of your background, but tell us a little bit about your business, and then we'll talk Proteus. But let's talk. Let's talk a little bit about your business first.
Yeah. So I moved out. I was training athletes for almost a decade in South Florida, and then just kind of wanted to do something new. Almost wanted to be in a new place. Once you live somewhere for a long time, sometimes, some people stay there, and it's fine, but I had something in me that said, go do something else. So,
yeah, hey, look, me, I've lived somewhere different every 5 years, it seems like. So
yeah.
I understand it. Keep going.
It's not good or bad. It's just, what you want as a person. So
the itch.
Yeah. So I moved out to LA, pretty much with nothing. I left a good position. And I, like I said, I just wanted to do something new. And, I had that entrepreneurial spirit, and I said, I want to start my own thing. So that's what I was in quest of, going out to California. A couple things fell through. So I ended up just training athletes all over the place, really. I was going to the Inland Empire. I was going down to Orange County. I was going up into LA, right near the Staples Center. And I was just driving all over the place, training guys. And, it's good, it's fun, but, there comes a time when it gets too hectic and you're on the road for 4 hours a day when you could be using those 4 hours to train more clients. So I did that for an off season. And then actually COVID hit and I just came back to South Florida for a little bit just because everything shut down in Southern California. And I was a little nervous. I'm like, man, I have no work. But what ended up happening was I had met a gym owner who had just bought a building earlier that year in January. And, he had told me, hey, I already got a sports performance company coming in here. And, I'll be in contact if anything happens. Well, fast forward through COVID, they ended up not coming to an agreement on a couple things. So he called me back and was like, hey man, like we got this great facility. And we just need a strength conditioning company. I love your resume. I love what you've done. Like I would love to come to an agreement with you. So we came to an agreement. So in July of 2022, we got back out to LA and we started on July 22nd with the sports performance business. And then, several months later, we got going with the one in Miami. And it just kind of happened so quick. So I went from not having any job, just kind of freelancing, to having 2 facilities within like a 6-month period. So it was kind of a lot. Yeah, it was a lot.
And that was, you said July 2022, but July 2020 is what you mean, right?
I'm sorry. Yeah. July 2020. Yes. July 2020. And then, then we got the Miami one going, and it was kind of a little hectic because I went from not even managing a single facility to managing 2. So
on different coasts.
So I was flying back and forth a bunch. I took like 24 flights in the matter of like 8 months or something like that, just because, if I have my people in Orange County and they want to go on vacation or they get sick, I got to fly out there. I didn't really have a staff. I didn't have a lot of resources. So now, fast forward 2 years and, we have 8 people on staff, and the businesses are growing on both coasts. So, it's all great, and I'm so happy for it. And our staff is awesome. I couldn't have a better, better people under me carrying out everything we want to do. So yeah, that's
awesome, man.
What's going on.
Yeah, that is a lot going on. I don't think a lot of people, it was probably not going to be the same journey that a lot of people that are listening to this are going to have, but I think it's an awesome journey. It just shows people, someone who's dedicated to making it happen and, has the right background and the passion behind it, what can happen, you know what I mean? And hey, you're a great relationship guy. So I totally could see how you've,
that's what I tell a lot of people, like once you learn the science and you kind of know the periodization and how you're going to train the athletes, you got to get the buy-in, you got to get the trust of all the athletes, their agents, their family, their school coaches, everyone. So, through that, that's like you said, like the relationships are what matter. So that's what you have to build over time to, build a successful business in any, arena.
Well, speaking of relationships, let's talk about the beginning of the Proteus relationship. So how did you first find out about us? Like, I can't, I don't really, have all those details clear in my head.
So it's funny, when I was thinking about moving to LA in 2018, I had an old colleague that I worked with that I reached out to him and I said, hey man, like, I know, this guy's worked in, sports performance. He's been a GM, he's been in equipment industry, he's been all over. So I said, hey, do you have any contacts out in California? He goes, as a matter of fact, I do. And he put me in contact with Larry Domingo. And yeah, we had our first conversation, and it was just more of like, what are you looking to do? When you come out here, what's your background? And Larry told me a little bit about himself. He was with Precor for a long time in Nautilus, and, he ran all the sales for them. And anyways, you think it might just be one conversation and it's over. And then it just kind of turned into a few weeks later, we got back on the phone, and then, I finalized my living arrangements out in California. And then he's like, hey, how are you getting out here? Do you need help? Larry, he's always looking to help someone. So I just stayed in contact with him, and then over the years, we from 2018 through 2019, we would talk all the time. And he was actually, when I was looking into facilities out in LA, he was helping me with some stuff because I didn't know anything about the business side. I was kind of lost. So he was helping me out there. And then when I finally opened in July of 2022, I guess Larry had met you guys, you and Sam, around that time, or
July 2020.
2020. He met you and Sam at some point. I don't know the timeline on that. But when we got the facility going, he brought to my attention the Proteus and you and Sam and everything. And I didn't really know anything about it. And we ended up going to Cressy's spot in Jupiter just to demo it, and got a demo up there. Still, since there's so many software features on the machine, it's like, okay, I understand what the 3D resistance does, but what is all the things I can do with it, So anyways, it turned into, getting a demo of it. We me, my staff, the gym owner out in Orange County, we all tried it out. We liked it. And we're like, okay, how do we get this? And that was the 1.0 version. That was the blue machine.
Dude, so that was, and let's be clear, that if I remember correctly, because I'm watching all this from afar secondhand through Larry, up in, back when I was still living in the Bay Area, and you had an early 1.0. So like that was basically a prototype.
Yeah, I don't want to brag, but I can say confidently, and I don't know how many were out at the time, but I know I was one of the first dozen sports performance gyms to get one. I think. I don't want to misspeak, but
yeah, no, I think you're right, man.
I like to call myself one of the earliest adopters, but it was by the help of Larry and then you and Sam, who kind of gave me the rundown on it when we got on that call that one day. And from there on, we just kind of we just kind of fell in love with it. We're like, all right, the athletes are loving it. The parents are asking what that is. So it's starting to create some buzz. It gives out all these metrics. And that's kind of where our industry's going, which I've come to notice. It's, that's where everything's going. So it's almost like if you don't have some type of technology in your gym now, you're falling behind. So, regardless of what type of technology that is. So, yeah. And then, we got it. We ended up buying one, and then the rest is history. Then we got one in Miami, and now we have two in Miami, and we have one in Orange County. So,
oh man, so
we're rolling with the Proteus.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. And you I think what would be really curious to know, or what is it about those metrics that you mentioned, right, that really gravitated you towards Proteus, and kind of, you mentioned that being something that the industry is moving toward. What give me a little bit more there, and is there anything specific that Proteus provides that drew you toward it?
I mean, it provides a ton, but from a simple standpoint of just the testing numbers it spits out, and those nice organized testing sheets with all the metrics on it, it's huge because, we train the athletes, especially at the middle school and high school level, and everything is about where do I need to be. So if a kid runs a 6.8 in the 60, it's like, okay, a 6.8 is great, but where do I need to be as a shortstop? And if I'm a pitcher and I'm throwing 84 as a 15-year-old, it's like, okay, 84, that's good, but where do I need to be? So everything in our industry is, how do I stack up against the next guy? Because when you're talking about college scholarships and you're talking about getting drafted, there's a million other players that are in the mix too. So it's, how do I set myself apart? How do I kind of show the scouts and these college recruiters why I deserve the chance over the next guy? So Proteus is awesome because, say I get a high school second baseman in, and we go through a Proteus test, and, it shows that his power numbers are in the 60th percentile and his acceleration numbers are in the 40th percentile. I can now show that athlete and his parent where they need to be to have a better chance of getting that scholarship. So obviously, if you are in the 40th percentile, we know that that's not going to cut it in most instances, and we're going to have to get those numbers up. So I actually just had a top shortstop. He was in the 60th percentile in both. And, you know, he recognizes that he needs to get those numbers up if he wants to be a higher round pick. So they're talking about this guy could go from anywhere from round 1 to round 5. And let's say he does get those numbers up into the 80th or 90th percentile, and he starts hitting a lot more home runs and his exit velos go up and all that. It's just more information that we can use to, you know, just show the athlete where they're at, one, or motivate them to get to the next level. Because sometimes as a strength coach, I may tell an athlete, hey man, you need to be here and you need to get a little stronger. And it's just me speaking to him. So a lot of times that doesn't sit with them because they're like, okay, well, yeah, my coach told me that. But when they actually see it on screen and they can actually like look through all those numbers, that's when it changes their mindset. You know, I like,
and they can see their progress too, right?
Yes, they can see all their trends. Because I showed a high school kid. He tested with us. He weighed 160 last July after training the whole off season. He was in the 70th percentile in all his metrics for his position. And then he went into the season, and I always preach, if you guys are going to work out in the off season, you need to maintain during the season. And the kids they get busy. They're in school all day. Then they go to baseball practice. And it's just kind of like, okay, well, if I work out, I work out. If I don't, I don't. No big deal. So he didn't work out the whole season, even though he told me he did. So as soon as I did a follow-up baseline Proteus test with him at the start of the summer, right after his high school baseball season was over, his numbers were bad, very bad. And now all of a sudden it turns from I was working out to, well, you know, I wasn't working out that much. So it's like the Proteus brought out the honesty in him.
The truth don't lie.
Whereas if we didn't have Proteus, I may not be able to do all these measures because it's not like I can max squat the kid on his first day back. It's not like I can max bench him on his first day back. I don't want to sprint him on his first day back, but Proteus, I could do Proteus. It's very safe. It's easy to use. So I can Proteus test them, and now I can show him all his metrics. And now him and his dad were like, oh man, like we need to work out in season.
Right. There you go. And see, that's something that I think is really valuable for people to understand is it's not one of the big strengths on Proteus, right, is it doesn't take very long to do a test. And like you said, it's extremely safe. It's, you know, concentrically biased. So you can do these tests and it's not a huge burden, like you said, to their system, but also to you as a facility and coach, right? Like, you know, we have people that, because it's so easy to test, they'll test people every week sometimes, you know, usually it's probably every couple of weeks, but you can do it every week and you really get a sense of where people are going. And that information is just giving you more fuel to tell you if you're doing the right programming, if the person's recovered. You know, it sounds like this athlete, you know, he did the typical thing, right, of gaining a lot of probably, you know, fitness before the season, goes through the season, his fitness drops down. He didn't do a good job of trying to maintain that fitness. And then you use this, you know, a Proteus test to see, oh yeah, look at how much he dropped. Whereas if he went back, he did some stuff during season to maintain, or if you did some if he had a Proteus, you know, to use during season, you could, you know, people could use that. And we have seen people do that where they use Proteus to basically see how they're progressing in their recovery or not during season. And the real cool thing about that is it prevents people, you can do this test that's, you know, max effort, and it's not going to create a lot of extra strain that obviously during season, you really got to avoid that, right? Like you really want to avoid adding any extra stress to the system. So sometimes people use that to monitor in season to give people an idea of where they're going.
Yeah, that's a good point. That, you know, we do a lot of speed training at our facility as well. So Proteus is awesome because we could do readiness to train tests on it as well. So we can get
nice
on different things. And, you know, if they put up way less output on the Proteus from say one Monday to the next Monday, we might fall back a little on their volume on the turf. So that's another cool thing is, you could do readiness to train tests as well. I mean, there's 15 different things we use it for.
We'll talk about that a little bit more, because I think, when people are thinking about getting a Proteus, they're trying to figure out how they integrate into their business, at a facility like yours that trains athletes. Are you doing testing? What's roughly, it sounds like you're doing a lot of little tests. Are you doing any kind of, let me not direct the conversation. Tell me how you're doing your testing, and then talk a little bit how you're using it for training as well.
Yeah. So when guys come in, we just like to get a baseline test just to kind of see where they're at. And, the first time they're on Proteus, it's a little transition because, we always talk about the Proteus stumble and not being organized from the ground up and all that stuff. So
that's when by the way, people who don't know, the Proteus stumble is 3D resistance creates this, you have to be organized the entire range of motion during, say, like a trunk rotation. And when you do it on if you're used to doing it on a pulley, and you do a rotation, you have to be organized for a single point during that rotation. So your body optimizes it for that single point. With Proteus, you have to be organized the entire way. So you almost will lose a little balance the first time you do it, because you're not used to having to be organized from the beginning all the way to the end. And it's funny, you see some, real good athletes, first time they do it, almost everyone before, they get that proprioceptive feedback, stumbles forward or stumbles back a little bit.
And then they look at the machine funny. They're like, what just happened right there?
Yeah, right. And then they do a couple reps and they're like, oh, now I feel it, right? And they get organized. But the proprioception, the feedback it gives you, it actually is helping them get better at their rotational power delivery. But anyways, sorry, I just wanted to, in case people didn't know what it was, I wanted to kind of talk about that. Keep going.
It's great. So I mean, just from a testing standpoint, we get guys in and we do a baseline test on them, just so we can email it to their parent or their high school coach or whoever wants the test, or they can forward it to whoever.
And is this a report? Is this one of the reports that you're talking about?
Yeah. So once we finish the test, just so that the parent can have numbers, because again, when we're talking about the athlete, it's a lot of times it's going to be a middle school or high school athlete. So we want to make sure that the parents are involved as much as possible and that they can see these results. And then the next time we do it, we usually wait about a month or two, just because, usually 2 months, just because when you're going through an aggressive training phase, I don't want to test guys in the middle of that, because sometimes the numbers are a little off. So I'll usually taper them off and then retest. So they're not doing a test in the middle of a vigorous training cycle. So that's obviously one way we use it. But from just an overall training standpoint, for arm care, upper body prep, hitting prep, pitching prep, we can use it there. So a lot of, we're in a facility with a hitting coach, a pitching coach, an infield coach, and a lot of our guys come in, and before they do hitting or throw their bullpen, they'll come over to Proteus, and with those pre-canned warm-ups that are on there, they'll go through. If they only have 5 minutes, they'll do a 5-minute warm-up. If they got a little longer and they need a little more time, every pitcher's different. Sometimes pitchers take an hour to get prepped before their bullpen.
Yeah.
Some pitchers take 10 minutes. So
there's
different pre-canned warm-ups and workouts on there that they come over and do. From just an overall strengthening standpoint, we get a bunch of guys in our circuits doing Proteus pre-canned warm-ups for upper body or lower body or whatever it is. So in addition to testing, we do it for warm-ups, workouts. We do it for energy system development. So, guys that say they don't want to run that day, but they want to get a really good sweat, we'll get them on the machine and we'll do different intervals. And as you've done it a million times. If I get a guy on a cable machine and then the next day I get him on the Proteus, he's going to be sweating twice as in half the time he's going to be getting a way better workout on Proteus, just because of that concentrically biased. So that's another way we use it. Like I just mentioned, readiness to train tests. Like I said, there's a ton of different ways. I have a whole list of things here that, ways we use it. Another one is just from a general programming standpoint. Sometimes, you get a little stuck in things you like to do, and you may forget other aspects of a training program just because you only have so much time allotted in the day for training these people. And, sometimes it's a good checks and balancing system. If I consistently see that my athletes' rotational power is going down month after month as a whole, as a huge sample size, but I'm seeing all the other numbers up high, it's like, well, what are we doing from a programming standpoint that these athletes are not getting better into rotation?
Right.
Do I have to switch something in our program? So it's a nice check and balancing.
Well, now one second before you go in further, I want to back up a little bit because you mentioned something earlier. So I got a few things right there that I think are really valuable. You got the testing at first where you're trying to basically obviously get this baseline where you're not only selling the athlete, but you're selling the parent, right? That was something you mentioned earlier. Like you do this test and you're saying to you send this report, and it not only helps the athlete get buy-in, but it literally helps the actual parent of that athlete who's often footing the bill, them to get buy-in, right? And it helps with that parental proof, right?
It's everything, because when you're doing it from a business perspective, obviously you want to get you want to keep all your clients healthy, you want to get them to college, you want to get them drafted, or whatever their goals are, you want to help them reach those goals. But part of that is the parent, because if the athlete comes in and they work out, say for a month, and they do our running program, our lifting program, our Proteus program, they do everything that we do from a training standpoint, and they feel great. They feel themselves running faster and being more powerful and hitting the ball farther. A lot of times the parents don't feel, obviously the parents might see it, but they don't feel that. So the parent may say, well, you never gave me any results. I don't really know what's going on over there. So, I'm not going to renew. And from a business perspective, you want client retention. Like that's everything in our business. So sending these Proteus reports to the parents is everything, because it's not just me writing on a piece of paper or sending them an email saying, oh, here, you got faster here and you did this. It's, hey, look at this organized report with the avatar on it, with the heat maps and all the information that they have. And now the parent is going to go not only be impressed by it, but they're going to go show their friend. They're going to go show the high school coach. And now all of a sudden they're saying, hey, can I come over and get a Proteus test? What's that all about? How can I train on it? And it just, again, it creates excitement in the facility because you're giving these clients things that they've never had before. Maybe they're at another training facility that doesn't have this type of technology. And it's kind of, again, we go back to where our industry is going. When I first started out, it was just use good science, progress these clients well, work on, controlling volume and intensity and progressing them over a 12-week off-season
progressive overload.
Yeah. And now it's, hey, I'm still going to do that, but now we need to check it. Where are we at?
Right.
Where are we at?
And that's where you brought in, I really love when you said too, just being honest with your own programming. Like a great thing about this is you can check to see if your programming is working, right? Whether, you know what I mean? Which is like, we all have to be honest, even me as a physical therapist, when I was treating, we have to take measurements.
Correct.
It's something we have to do often to see, is the joint improving its range of motion? Is the program I'm giving working? Right. And same with training, right? You have to, having the ability to look at that, it's only going to make you a better trainer, right? If you can actually go in there and say, just like you said, I love that honesty of like, I'm seeing the rotational power go down. What's going on here, right? Is it something with their recovery, or is it something with my programming, or or a combination? Let's change it to get these numbers to go up, to really be honest with where you are. And I think that's only going to make, the more and more people do that, it's only going to lead to improved outcomes, right? Because what doesn't get measured doesn't get managed.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, if you're talking about just from a business standpoint, again, if you have a facility and you're the only one coaching, that's one thing. But if you're growing a business and you have, say, even a staff of 5, you have your system in place. You have all your databases of your movement prep and your mobility and your speed training and your weight room progressions for different sport and all the other factors that go into it. But if you have 5 coaches, like I said, and they're all assisting in this program, it's a lot of exercise. It's a lot of information. So sometimes you get comfortable doing one way and you don't mean to, but you forget about some of the other aspects. Again, we only have so much time. So yeah, the Proteus can really help keep the.
So that's interesting. So is what you're saying, if I'm reading this correctly, what you're saying is you're actually using it you create this kind of overarching system, but you have these different, coaches that are helping you implement your system. And you can almost use it to also check to see like how they're implementing the system as well, right? Like how they're implementing the progressions and are they getting the results based on,
it can even be something, and I haven't done this yet, but now that we're talking about it, it's given me ideas. Like say you have a coach that mostly trains athletes in the morning, and then you have a second coach that trains athletes in the afternoon. And let's say we start seeing the afternoon guys they're lacking in their rotational power, but the morning guys are great. It's like, okay, what's going on right now? Like, why is this happening? Like with our program, we should kind of see the same trends. So yeah, I mean, it's just something where, it can help, just monitor everything that's going on at the program. So it's not only for the athletes, it's for the coaches as well. And it's to keep everything in check.
And something that's, it's got to be helpful for you is since you have literally facilities on 2 coasts, is you can see, obviously from your computer, you can pull it up right now and see how people are doing in either facility, right?
Yes.
Which is super valuable, especially for someone like you. I'd say for most people that have a Proteus, they probably only have one facility or maybe multiple facilities the same, in one general region where they can just drive there. But someone like you who's all over the place and all that, you can check on this at any point in time. And that's got to be nice, I guess, because it's hard you can't do that with everything in a gym, right? You can't, look in remotely and see, how far their med ball progressions have gone or, something like that every day. But you can look at Proteus.
It definitely makes it a lot easier for sure.
Yeah. So talk a little bit more about your, you said you integrate with, this facility that also has coaching and your, like hitting coaches and pitching coaches. And, obviously people will use Proteus more as like a warm up, type of, post-act, almost kind of get things going for a post-action potentiation before they go and do these other activities. Can you talk about just generally that structure of that business? Like, do all your athletes do coaching and training, or do some of them just do training and some of them just do coaching? And then how does that work with Proteus as well?
In an ideal world, I would want every athlete to do everything we have there in-house, but it's not realistic. So, when I was working previously in Florida, I didn't have access to batting cages and pitching mounds and an infield guy or more of like a coach that's going to hit ground balls and all that stuff. But agents are going to call and say, hey, my player is thinking about coming to South Florida, but is only going to come if you can provide somewhere he could throw a bullpen, somewhere he can lift, a medical staff, all these different things. And I didn't have that before. So the way it all came about is one of the big leaguers I have trained for a long time. He brought to my attention that his hitting guy was going to start a facility and was trying to put together a team. So I immediately got excited because I'm like, this is everything I've wanted. I wanted everything in-house. So I went and I had a meeting with him. His name's Ricardo Sosa. He's a very sought after hitting coach in the South Florida area. And actually people come in from all over the country.
And who was your athlete that told you about
it was JD Martinez. So JD Martinez of the Red Sox. I've known him a long time. Stayed in contact with him when I went out to California and then came back during COVID. And like I said, I always stayed in contact with him, and he reached out to me one day and he's like, "Hey, Ricardo wants to have a meeting with you just to see if this thing can work." So I went over his house. We sat there for 5 hours just discussing everything, how everything was going to work, what type of clientele we already had, what we were going to go like shoot towards, where the building was going to be, because, in Miami, we didn't want to be too far south because then we miss out on some of the Broward guys. And a lot of these big leaguers are buying houses in Broward now. And then we didn't want to go too far north because then we miss out on all the Miami guys and Coral Gables and all that stuff. So we just talked about everything, like from top to bottom, how much we were going to charge, everything, the medical staff we were going to put in place, who we were going to bring in to do the infield work, what pitching coaches we were thinking about. And then he also spoke to other sports performance facilities. And I guess after our meeting, he just said, "Hey, I want to go with you." So that's how we got it done. But not all the athletes train with any one of us. Now, some of them do all their training on our side, then go hit with Sosa or his staff, then do their pitching stuff with Leo, then do their hitting stuff with George. So some people come in and do everything. And it's from a logistical standpoint too. Some of the parents can't just be driving all over the city, taking their child to 5 million different places.
Yeah.
That's another thing. It's logistically, it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, I have clients that work out with me that don't hit with Sosa. Sosa has clients that hit with him that don't train with me. Although since we work so closely together, we like to work towards that. And we've referred each other, already over 20 big leaguers each. So it's awesome from that standpoint, because now the big leaguer walks in the facility, sees that we have the training side, we get together, we have a conversation, and it's just a little easier to manage, so.
And I should say too, I've been to this facility. It is a fun environment, man. You guys got the music playing, like the vibe is so good. It's really got that, South Florida.
That's a huge thing. When you go into a facility, you want the energy to be there, because you don't want to show up to go train. I don't care who you are. If you're general population, if you're in whatever it is, whatever you're training for, who wants to show up to a gym that's negative and it's got like this bad aura in there? You want to go to a place that has a bunch of energy. So that's the other thing we talked about. I've kind of been a little more strict coach. I like to keep the athletes in line because we have goals we have to reach. But when we started this facility, it's like we're still going to work hard towards our goals, but we allow the guys to have a lot of fun in there. So
yeah, and obviously I've seen a lot of it through the Proteus lens. So I've seen these pictures and posts on social media of people, yelling at each other while on Proteus and, having a good time, but
yeah, guys are ordering in, guys are catering in food on Fridays. There's like dance parties in there on Fridays because it's the weekend.
That's awesome.
There's all kinds of guys will finish hitting, running, and lifting, and then they'll just hang out there for another hour. So it's kind of like, a lot of guys finish at their facility and they take off right away, get on with their day. But we've created that kind of family environment where guys just don't want to leave,
That's awesome, man.
And great.
And even the big leaguers, the big leaguers are doing that too. Like they're hanging around.
Oh yeah. They're the main ones. When I'm saying this stuff, because when you're a high school athlete, a lot of them hang around there, but you got school and then your parents have a job and then you got to get home for dinner and all that. When the big leaguers come, they're mostly coming in the morning. And then they kind of got the rest of their day to relax and do whatever, this is their job. So they end up hanging around. So if their session finishes at 11, some of these guys are hanging out in there till 12, 1 o'clock, just kind of shooting the shit with each other and having a great time.
Yeah. Well, so now it's time. I'd love to ask you a few things on a few questions from getting people. I want people, you're a humble guy, but I'd love for you to kind of tell people, who some of these athletes are. Who are some of the big leaguers using it, if you could say, that come and train?
I put, regardless if they want to or not, it's just, this is our program and I've structured and programmed in Proteus to everything we do, from a general strengthening standpoint to a testing to the finishers and the energy system and everything. So if you come into our program, we'll have anywhere between 40 and 60 minor league, major leaguers in there every off season. And if you come into the program, you're using Proteus. So, and all the guys love it. But yeah, I mean, we have, I've already mentioned JD, Miguel Cabrera. I've been training him a really long time, the only Triple Crown winner in the last 55 years. John Carlos Stanton, when he's in town, he splits time between LA and Miami and different places. So when he's in town, he's always training with us. Jazz Chisholm from the Marlins, the superstar infielder. He's in there using it. And, you've seen videos of him. The shortstop for the Marlins, Miguel Rojas. For a week last year, we had Bo Bichette in, the shortstop for the Blue Jays, Santiago Espinal. Even the next wave of big leaguers in the next few months or next year for sure, you're going to see guys like Tristan Casas and Mark Vientos in the big leagues, and they're going to have a huge impact for their team. I know you don't know their names yet, or a lot of people don't, but this is the next wave, and these guys are in there using it, and we're getting numbers stored in the cloud. They're 21 years old, and we're getting numbers up there. I've trained a lot of those guys since they were little kids. We just got a first rounder that we work with a little bit. He trains at another facility, but he comes in and does some supplemental work with us. Sal Stewart, he just got drafted 32nd overall by the Cincinnati Reds. He was on the Proteus a ton. It was kind of like a staple in his program when he came in. So yeah, I mean, and like I said, I can go on, but those are just some of the names that people in the baseball world would know.
Steve, hey man, those are big names, and I think it's you're such a humble guy, but I wanted people to know that even though you're humble, man, you're legit. We're talking about some elite training going on, so I just wanted to make sure that people knew. So now it's time for what we're gonna call lightning round questions, some quick hitters. Just give me your quick answer to these. I want to come up with something like more of like a Proteus name for this, like the power questions or something like that.
You can change your voice to the Water Maniac and do a power round.
Oh no,
in the wrestling voice.
Oh man, the Water Maniac. So I do it in this voice the whole time.
Yeah, do it like that.
All right. Let's see. Well, all right, I'll try that. Why not? Let's give it a shot on this first one. So Joe, what's the biggest gimmick that you've seen in the last few years in the training industry?
The biggest gimmick?
Gimmick. Yeah, gimmick. Biggest fad. Give me a gimmick. What's a gimmick that you've seen in the training industry?
Oh, I can't think of anything right now. You got me there. I guess I can say all these people who just do a million footwork drills and think that that's legit training, even though it can be very beneficial. The footwork drills, sometimes it's just a gimmick to show cool exercises on screen to get more clients in. Because I guess in the end of the day, what it's about is getting clients. So I'd say some of these ridiculous footwork drills.
I love it. You still got to lift weights. The Water Maniac's about lifting weights and going powered. You can't just do footwork. Love it. All right. What piece of equipment do you wish you had?
More Proteus units.
Love it. More Proteus units. You know what? I got to go with the sunglasses for the rest of this if we're going true Water Maniac. What are your top 5 favorite exercises and why? Proteus or not? Go.
I guess I'd say the split squat, the barbell split squat. It's just a really good lower body strengthening exercise. The reverse hyper targets the posterior chain really well. Have a lot of success with that. I guess sleds are huge. We use sleds every day, from trunk and spine work to speed work to strengthening work. So I'd
also concentrically biased, just FYI.
Biased, correct. I guess med ball, a lot of med ball work. I like throwing med balls around. It's always fun. And number 5 would be I don't know. Number 5. What would be your top one?
Well, if we're going Proteus, then of course I'm going to go with a trunk rotation or a.
Yes, you know what? Let me rearrange that. I would say Proteus shot put exercise is number 1, and then the 4 previous ones I mentioned are 2 through 5.
Love it. Love a shot put. That's a great one. Okay. By the way, I just have to pause here so people know who don't know. I did this stupid thing once where I played basically a wrestling heel on our social media, and I called myself
It
the
was
Water
amazing.
Maniac. So that's what we're hearing right now.
The
All right,
people
let's
gotta go
jump
back and watch all those videos.
Who's your favorite athlete and why?
Oh, I don't know. I'm more of a baseball and football guy, but I would say, and this is kind of weird, but I'd say Rafael Nadal. I've always liked watching him on the court. I like the way he slides around at the French Open. He's got the most Grand Slams of all time. Although I know Djokovic is right on his tail, but yeah, I'd say Rafael Nadal. He's very exciting to watch.
Love it. And then now give advice to young Joe Ferrer. What would you tell young Joe Ferrer early in his career?
I would say to go to a facility. If you want to be a sports performance coach, just go to a facility and go to a top one, go to a really well-respected coach in the industry, and just go ask to observe and pick his brain whenever you can, or her brain whenever you can. Because the biggest thing in our industry, in addition to just learning and getting time under your belt, is the network. And I know in every industry, that's what everyone says, it's networking, but I've come to learn that it is all about networking 100%. So go and build relationships with as many sports performance coaches or owners or top people in the industry that you can, because you never know what's going to come of it. Even if you have to do a free internship for a summer, it's going to be worth it in the long run.
Love it. Networking, always important. Water Maniac understands that. And what are your favorite podcasts other than the Proteus Performance podcast? Give us your favorite podcast. Go.
The one everyone talks about. I listen to Joe Rogan all the time just because he has a ton of different guests on, from scientists to comedians to athletes to, billionaires to everything. So I like listening to that because every time you listen, you get a little something new. I actually, just a few years ago, I just started listening to more podcasts. So I wasn't a big podcaster until recently. So, but yeah, I'd say Joe Rogan. So not a crazy answer.
No, that's great. And one day, hopefully the Water Maniac and the Proteus Performance podcast will be on the Joe Rogan level. But I think we got a little while to go.
Yes. I think you can get on there.
Oh, wow. Hey, I'd love to be on there. I don't know about, I'm not sure the Proteus Performance podcast should have its sight set on being the Joe Rogan podcast, but, hey, I love it. He definitely has his guests are interesting that, he sometimes he'll have some great guests on there that actually do talk about some cool science and everything. So, he can be infamous as well as, being also, illuminate some cool things. But yeah, man. So we'll appreciate that. As we're, I apologize to the guests for having to listen to my Water Maniac voice, but I think maybe that's something we'll keep doing. Maybe we'll
do
make
like a little, on every radio show or podcast, there's like different little segments they do, so it can be kind of like the Water Maniac fire round.
Yeah,
that voice.
The power round. I like the power round, right?
Okay, the power round, yeah.
Power round with Proteus power round. So, all right, man. Well, hey, this has been so awesome, Joe. Obviously we've been known you for a long time. You're starting to work really closely with us more and more these days. But tell everyone how they can find you if they want to reach out to you, ask you questions. What's the best way to reach out to you?
It's just on our Instagram handle. I don't have Twitter or any of these other things, but if you go to @reroute_performance on Instagram, that's where you can find us easiest. And then our website is www.reroute-performance.com. So that's how you can check us out.
Awesome. And you're going to be seeing, Joe working more and more with us. So if any of you guys reach out to Proteus reach out to Proteus to learn more about Proteus, you might get a response from Joe himself. So Joe might be someone that reaches back out to you. He's been doing great things with us, showing off the product and everything when people come into his facility. So he's kind of an expert that was out of house that we're bringing more and more in-house. So expect to see that if you reach out to us. So, okay, Joe, man, this has been super fun. thanks for having being on here and being for having me be the first podcast host you talk to on air. I love it. And we'll be talking to you and seeing you real soon.
All right. Thanks for having me. I'll talk to you soon, Will.
Take care.